there is a recording. So those of you that aren't able to participate for the whole duration or want to listen at a later time can do that, and the webinars are all uploaded onto the Stripe website. Let me just start though by extending a huge thanks to everybody who is working hard to make this project such a success across all of your different institutions. The folks here in San Francisco are deeply grateful for your partnership. So thank you all for working so hard to ensure that this project has impact and maybe, you know, is a project that can be a catalyst for important change across many settings in terms of how HIV training is done and how team-based HIV care is delivered. I'm going to just start with a quick outline. So we wanted to propose a fun idea for how you might engage students in the Stripe project, and so I'll start with that. And then I'm very excited to have Dr. Alejandro from Mozambique and Dr. Clara from Zimbabwe share their experiences, lessons learned. So I'll give the presentation over to them, and then my colleague here, Jessica Celentano, will end the webinar with some important updates on how we're trying to streamline the evaluation process so that it's quicker and more efficient and collects the data we need without wasting the time of your students. But let me begin with this fun idea. And we're keen to kind of get your input on whether you think this idea is something that will fly. But in brief, what we're interested in trying to do is collect the stories of the learners. How has this training affected their experience of HIV education or their clinical practice? How has Stripe informed how they think about team-based HIV care or how they interact with other trainees? And the way that we want to capture this information is via a few video stories. And so our thought was, you know, what is the thing that most learners have? It's a smartphone. Not all, but many. And so can they capture in their own words with their own smartphones 180 seconds worth of stories that they would be willing to share? So these are ideas that come from the learners rather than the folks that are running the programs in each of your settings. So specifically, our thought is to ask students, or have you ask students to develop a short video. And when I say students, I'm using it in the broadest sense. So anybody who experienced or participated in the Stripe training as a learner rather than a facilitator. So that could be medical or nursing students, folks in their internships. And I know in some programs there are MMeds and residents, house officers, registrars that are also participating, and I see no reason why they wouldn't be eligible to propose a video stories. To make it more fun and more enticing, our proposal is that there would be one first prize for the best student story of $150 worth of airtime, and then 4 runners-up prizes. We're proposing a deadline of January 15th, so there's plenty of time, recognizing that not all of your programs have actually started the Stripe training of learners yet. You're doing a training of trainers, but maybe not training of learners. But many of you have already done some of the training. So any learners that have done the training or are currently participating in the training would be eligible. And to make this easy, we just said we just want them to share their video either via the Stripe HIV website, email address, or they can just send it over WhatsApp, which as you'll know is an easy medium for sending video files. The important small print that is just worth sort of sharing. So we do require that students get consent from all video participants. This can be verbal rather than oral. We're not asking for any feature length movies, 180 seconds worth of content. And the key here is that we're interested in folks using their smartphones. So it doesn't have to be a fancy camera, doesn't have to be somebody with videography experience beyond using their cameras. And any format will work in terms of the standard formats that most smartphones use. So AVI, MOV files, MPEG or MP4. And look, to be really clear, any aspect of the Stripe project that is relevant to the learners is sort of game here. So, how they want to present their content is completely up to them. We'll send more details about this in the next Stripe circular. And as I say, there's 2 months of time for folks to work on this, but it's really a fun idea to get the students engaged in the project. Happy to take any questions if anybody has any questions, or even leave these for the end. And you can also email your questions to me at stripehiv@ucsf.edu. Okay, doesn't look like there are any questions, so which is fine. By all means, save them for the end and ask them later. That would be absolutely acceptable. If not, we look forward to receiving stories from your learners along the way over the next couple of months, and I'll follow up on this at a later point. Okay, so without further ado, what we'd like to do with the next 40 minutes of the webinar is take some time to hear from two of your two projects, the experiences, lessons learned, etc. And I'm very grateful to have Dr. Alejandro from Maputo, who's going to share her experiences, or rather the experience of the Stripe project in Maputo. And then, as I said before, Dr. Clara in Zimbabwe. So let me just do a sound check. Alejandro, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Oh, maybe I try again. Can you hear me? Hello. Perfect. Okay, so over to you. You tell me to advance the slides, and I can advance the slides for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have to say thank you for giving this opportunity. And what I would like to show is the steps which we used to training about 120 students and doctors. Can you go to the next? Okay, we use 2 days with 10 hours each day instead of using 2 days and a half. We used the case the model 1, 3, 4, and 17, the compulsory models in the first day and the optional in the second day. Can you go to the next? Okay, we use the sequence of the number of the models, and we use the time according to what was proposed in the facilitator guided. And we use the different groups based on the professional activities, like one medical doctor in the first, and the people would nurse people, and the facilitator took the responsibility to guide the trainees and to manage the time. Between the models, we gave around 10 minutes to have a coffee break and to discuss within the students how to felt after presenting the model. Can you go to the next? Okay, these are pictures which different ways to interact with the groups, small groups, and the facilitator sometimes working within the group and sometimes out of the groups, including all the participants. The next. These are the pictures which we took showing the interaction in different places. We used 4 different places, Maputo, Nampula, Tete, and Climane for the TOT and for the T training. The next. We start deciding about the optional models and the sequence to deliver them, and to decide about the criteria to use the people as facilitators, who could be the participants, and all the logistic support in each site. That's why we gave in different times according to the availability of the people. Then we start the translation, worked really hard with the translation and with the Stripe team, getting the best version of the models which we used. We had a lot of meetings coordinating with the facilitators about the role of the facilitators and how to manage the facilitators guide. And we worked also to develop the test and pre and post testing models based on we received from the Stripe team. We interact not only with the HIV team from UCSF, but also with the KwaZulu-Natal in a lot of times. We needed to print the materials because the students didn't have the computers, and or the learners, all the learners or most of them didn't have the computers, and we needed to print the materials and to send to the sites also. The next, please. It was really the best thing to get everybody involved in the workshop, the authorities, the national authorities like the Minister of Health, the leaders, the stakeholders, the health professionals, and we start developing a Stripe HIV local team with more competency that we had at the beginning of the project. With the time which we spent preparing the workshops, we have a good result in managing of the time, meaning that within these 20 hours of training, we have got a good results which we can check by seeing the results of pre and the post tests. Taking the people from different cadres and different professions, show the people that we are not prepared to work as an interprofessional team to care the HIV patient. We started something, and we hope to have the opportunity to develop it, and in few years, not at the end of the project, but in few years, we will get strong interprofessional team care, at least for the HIV patients. Can you go to the next, please? Yes, the first problem was who to include in the training program. A lot of people still interested in attending the training. Maybe the solution is to prepare more workshops, but we have to see how to do it. 2 full days was not adjusted to the viability of the participants. In some cases, we don't have the post-test, or we don't have the pre-test because the participants were involved in other tasks. But they attended the modules, but they couldn't fill the the tests. We have got a small problem, but it's something important for us. In Maputo, we included the nutritionists because they are part of the team in the Central Hospital of Maputo, but they were not really involved as a part of the team, and they felt that they don't need to know about the ways to approach the ART, and in some case they felt somewhat bored. But it's an important thing to check and to sort out in order to develop a more strong interprofessional team. We felt that what we are checking with the knowledge, particularly in the pre-test, which is included also in the post, the questions included in the pre-test are not well correlated to the aims of the training, because we are looking to develop a team and we are not checking which are the level of confidence or abilities or knowledge, and it made us I don't know the real word, but we kept it in the mind to take care. Maybe we have to understand first which are the role of the participant in the team and try to connect it with the questions of the pre and post tests. That's why we put the questions how and what to do in case of. Maybe could be more important than to check which is the best treatment for this patient. Or taking into account my role in the team, what should I do? That's what I felt that it was missed in the tests. Please, the next. Okay, we translate all the documents, and as an example, the next please. This is a part of the facilitator guide in Portuguese we translated. We tried to kept all the details in the English version to show that we are in the same way to approach the model. The next, please. Is another translation of the pre-test, one of the pre-tests of the model 1, to show that we have translated this in the, and we put it in the way to facilitate the participant to answer or to fill the questions of this assessment. The next. The post-test, an example of the translation, it is only a part, and this is a graph which doesn't mean a lot of things. And thank you.
Just 1 second, Alejandra. I'm having a logistical problem here, so bear with me while I go back, move the slides back, so that you can show us your graph again. I'm very keen that you highlight for us what you are showing us there. So give me a second. Apologies for that. So please explain to us what we're seeing here. We'd be grateful to get your perspective on the slide.
What we have here is the results in model 1. There is one of the participants who didn't fill even the pre or the post. One of them filled the pre, but didn't fill the post. And these are the level of answering, the correct answer. This is only a small thing because we are putting all the data in SPSS in order to explore the results and to understand what had gone on. That's all.
Alejandra, thank you so much. I mean, fantastic work. Elsie just typed in the box, great work, Mozambique, congratulations. And I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. May I ask you a couple of questions, and maybe there are other questions as well. First of all, how did you choose your facilitators? Who are they? And did the facilitators focus on one individual module, or did the facilitators all move between the modules as well?
All the facilitators worked with all the modules. And I should say that all of us, because I was one of the facilitators, all of us have been in Lagos, and we attended the workshops and the sessions related to the Stripe training. And one facilitator worked with all the models, the compulsory and the optional.
Okay, great. And can you tell us where your learners came from? What were the training institutions or disciplines?
From the university, the trainees came from the university, from the Central Hospital of Maputo in Maputo, and from another higher institution who had lab technicians. They train lab technicians, and they have the nursing courses for maternal and child nurse courses and general nursing. This is the same CISA in Maputo, and in Nampula we used the Central Hospital of Nampula and the Universidade Lúrio. We used the public universities in all the different sites, and the Central Hospital, the main reference in the region, in each region, because we split the country in these three regions: the north, south, and center.
I see. And one other question. I'll go for it.
Sorry, I was to add. I need to add that in the central, in the north, we have only the nursing and medical trainees for all the groups. TOT and T, they came from nursing courses and medical.
Okay. So this question is related to that. Then, how was the training different when you did it in Nampula and Tete compared to Maputo?
In Maputo, we have a more larger diversity because we include the nutritionists and the lab technicians, and we have a larger team care. And we could mix better than in Nampula and other places. And it was more easy to work in Nampula and the other place than Maputo because they used to work together. They are less in the teams. In Maputo, we have a larger diversity, and the approach was a little bit more difficult. Because for the nutritionists and for this institution who are giving, which is given the other type of courses like lab technicians and nursing, they are not prepared to work in the hospital. They used to be the supervisor for the students. And with the students was the same. In Maputo, the enthusiasm and the interest of the students were more evident within the students than within the trainee of trainees, particularly in Maputo.
I see. Well, look, I think it's remarkable that you are able to get such a diversity of learners. I haven't heard of nutritionists joining before, so kudos to you for including them. I think it is worth us thinking about how can we make the learning more relevant to a diverse set of learners.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. The one other thing I just wanted to commend you for was overcoming the language barrier and getting everything translated. You've done a tremendous amount of work, and we're deeply appreciative for all of your efforts and your leadership in Maputo. So thank you, Dr. Alejandra, for how you've done such an amazing job. Thank you for presenting today.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Go for it.
This is Judy from Kenya. Thank you so much. I echo the sentiments of both Mike and Elsie regarding the great job you've done in Mozambique. I just had two quick questions for you, Daktari, regarding the mix of the TOT, the teachers. Do you have just faculty from the training institutions, or do you have a mix of faculty from the training institutions and also health workers within the health facilities? And then number two, perhaps just give us a sense of your experience regarding the interprofessionalism component. How did you see that play out so that if you have a mix of the doctors, the nurses, even the nutritionists, like you're saying, how did they interact with the material? Was it easy? Was it hard? Just give us a sense of that. Thank you.
Okay, we involved also the institutions giving the facilities, like the central hospitals, because the people are trained in these institutions, and we would like to check if the training which we gave to them impacts in some way to develop the interprofessional team. That's why we involve not only the faculty, but also the facilities, the people who work as supervisors in the facilities, and the students also.
Yeah, okay.
And the nutritionists felt that they were not involved in the past, and it was not easy to follow the discussions in some way. When we started discussing about at the beginning, when we started discussing about the treatment, they said, "Oh, why I have to hear about it? What I need to be involved?" And when they realized that the interaction of the medicines could be a problem for the nutritionist, because the patient could lose something or can need a special thing from the foods, they realized that, oh yes, we have to be a part of the interprofessional team. And in the second part of the day, what was more easy to work with the nutritionists and the people from the laboratory, the technicians, even the supervisors.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Thank you again. Much appreciated, Dr. Alejandra. Let's move on if that's okay. I'm going to invite Dr. Clara from Zimbabwe to join us. And let's just quickly do a sound check. Dr. Clara, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mike. Can you
Perfect.
hear me?
And we can hear you, yes, loud and clear.
Oh.
So
Yes.
why don't you just, you would tell me when you want to advance the slides and I'll move them forward for you.
Okay, we can start now.
Great.
Okay, how did we prepare? What we did, we advertised, within the college and also the surrounding hospital to see if we can recruit faculty that were going to be facilitators. So we recruited the faculty, that were interested in being facilitators, and we also advertised for and recruited students that were interested for the 3 sites. That was one within the college at Parrenyata Hospital, and then another central hospital, which is Harare Hospital, and also for our rural hospital, which was Howard. For the facilitators, what we did was we had a pre-training meeting a week before the actual training, where we introduced the STRIDE program. We introduced them to what was expected of them, and we introduced the modules and how we're going to space out the modules. And then what we did was we distributed the modules among the facilitators so that they could read before we actually had the training. So we assigned, each module to a facilitator so that they can read it more. Because what we wanted to do was that we wanted them to present these modules when, during the training. Next slide. So we had, like here, what you have here is the distribution of the workshop, starting with the TOT workshop, the trainer of trainers workshop for the faculty, and then the 3 sites where we did the training. So our target for the trainer of trainers faculty, we wanted 10, but we ended up with 12. And this is also because we included 2 facilitators from Howard Hospital. We took 1 matron and also a tutor from Howard Hospital. So we brought them in so that they could be trained with the other facilitators. That was going to assist us so that when we go to Howard, at least we have some people from the rural side who were familiar with the hospital, and also so that they take ownership of the program that we were doing. And then Parrenyata, for all our training sites, we had targeted that we do 20, but we received such an overwhelming response from the students, and we had to actually turn away some of the students on the day of training, on the first day, because we thought, our site was now getting too small for the numbers that were coming in. As you notice, we had almost double at Parrenyata, we had more than double the number that we had budgeted for the workshop. And this consisted of the nursing students, the medical students, the rehab students, and also medical laboratory students. And then at Harare Hospital, the next central hospital, we got 35. So here we also had nursing students, medical students, rehab, medical labs. We also had another cadre here, which was the primary counselors. These were not students per se, but these were primary counselors that are used in the HIV and AIDS clinic. So they asked to join. So we thought it was a good idea. So we let them join in the discussions and the workshop. And then at Howard, we ended up with, actually with 22. We had budgeted for, we had arranged for 20. Our target was 20. So we ended up with 22. There's an error there. So here, the same type of differentiation of staff, we had, but we also had one pharmacist, a newly graduated pharmacist who also joined the group. So next slide. Initially, when we started the training, especially in Parrenyata, we had 2 facilitators per module, and this consisted a nurse and then a physician. So one facilitator will start working on the first few or half of the objectives, and then the other person will also work on the latter half of the objectives. And then later on, eventually we decided to have one person, one facilitator per module. And then what the other facilitators that were there, they will actually help, sitting in with the students, and then also assisting with the microphone when the other facilitator was facilitating. They would actually assist and do a running around so that it made their work easier. Next slide. We selected the first four module 1, 3, 4, 6, 9, 12, and 17. So we use those modules, the 7 modules, in the first workshop that we conducted. But at the end of that, we found that the students were getting really tired, and we felt, maybe we should limit ourselves to 6 modules, because one of the observation was that we were not spending as much time as the facilitators and the participants would have wanted. They wanted us to give more time per module. So we reduced the numbers, for the subsequent workshops. So for the rural area, we substituted, module 17 because we wanted something that was more relevant to the rural area. We have students that are placed, in Howard, they go there for attachment. So that module 14 was very appropriate for our site, our rural site at Howard Hospital. Next slide. What went well and any recommendation? We found that we easily reached our targets, and we actually exceeded our targets. And I think that was because of the overwhelming response, how people received the Stripe training. People were very much interested, and they really wanted to take part in this. That included also the facilitators, but we had a limited number of people that wanted to train. So there were some who were still eager to come to be trained. And as for the students, we received their names a week before, but came the day of the training, other students pitched up and they wanted to be trained. So we managed to take some of them, but we had to say, no, we can't continue taking more students because, the place was getting a little bit congested. So what we did with those students that we didn't take, we took their names down, and we are going to arrange another workshop next week, Wednesday and Thursday. So we are going to give that, do another workshop for the students. And already there are some students that are asking and seeing if they could join. And one of the things that's happening, we've got a strike in Zimbabwe. I don't know whether people are aware, the doctor strike. So you find that most of the students are not attending classes or their clinical attachment. So the next best thing to do is to actually come and attend the Stripe workshops. So I think one of the reasons why we're getting this overwhelming response to the program. So we found that the facilitators that we chose, most of them, like I said, were faculty who teach at the College of Health Sciences, but we also involved other personnel from, let's say, Howard Hospital. We had also planned to take some people from the Ministry of Health, but because of some of these meetings that were happening, so those things were cancelled, so they were not able to attend. The students were motivated from the beginning up to the end in all our 3 workshops that we held, at Pari, Harare, and also in Howard. And sometimes we had some challenges, like we had punctures, wheel punctures, and the students arrived very late, on day 1, after the facilitation day 1. but they were still motivated and they were willing to go back, for day 2. Next slide. So the program, I think the program has sparked quite a lot of interest among faculty and students. And what has happened, we initiated as a faculty-student mentorship, so that wherever they're going to go, the students, they can call back and be linked with one of the faculty, so that, if they've got any questions or if they would need any assistance, they could be helped. And then you also had peer mentorship that started, where the students that were trained to have started talking to other students that did not come and explaining to them what the program was all about. And I think this explains why there's more students that want to be trained, because they've read or they've heard from the other students, who seem to have had a great time. We also gave them certificates of attendance, and that was a great selling point for the student, because they liked having the certificates, and they can use the number of hours that they participated in, as points when they register. They are supposed to have covered so many hours of different programs. So those hours are going to be useful when it comes to accreditation hours. We also had a request from the private sector. We had one of the facilitators who is a member of the Zimbabwe Medical Association. They asked if they could use the Stripe modules to train the doctors. They said, well, you think this is okay for the students, but they felt that this is something that's going to be useful for the doctors as well, private, and even those that are working in the public sector. They specifically also asked that, they could have these workshops, scheduled once a year, and then they call all these doctors, and we use the same model of facilitation which we did for the students. And also they said, also we can have another workshop where we teach, or where we do facilitation of the interprofessional education training, because we've got the Happy Grant. So they were interested in that as well. So that was an open invitation, and we thought it just shows success, and it shows how much people were excited about the program. Next slide. So we found that the time that was given for each module, the facilitators and also the students felt that the time was not adequate. And also the one-day training that we gave for the facilitators, they felt that it could have been increased to like 2 days, because what they felt like was that they needed more time so that they would go into the content, because they wanted to understand more of the content. But what was surprising, even after those comments came out, because we did an evaluation after the training, we found that the facilitators, were very, very versatile, and they worked with the student very, very well, and they seemed to understand the modules. And one thing, what happened, I feel that the facilitators prepared so much. They read quite a lot on the modules and prepared, so that when they came the time to facilitate, this was done very smoothly with no problems there. The other thing, what happened was we had to turn away the students. It was really upsetting for some of the students, but we couldn't take any more. But we planned for another workshop, which is going to happen tomorrow, for those students that were turned away when we were training at Parenyatwa. And then we had problems with the online evaluation. This was because of some inconsistencies with our Wi-Fi side. Because one student was trying to fill in, the Wi-Fi, it will time out and then it will shut before the students completed. So what we ended up doing was to print out all the evaluation forms and then ask the student to fill in the evaluation form so that, you know, the M&E team would actually enter those responses, you know, online for them. Also, with the printed evaluation forms, we found that because we are selecting certain number of modules, but the evaluation forms came with all the 17 modules, so it became bulky. So a request was made that could we have the evaluation forms, you know, separated, especially when we are going to print the hard copies, separated so that we can only select those that we need for the modules that we are using. Because it was a little bit cumbersome for the students, and we found that some of the students did not complete all the required section, maybe because they missed out. So at the beginning and at the end, what we did was to tell them, you know, only complete the areas of the modules that we covered. But even then, there were some students that did not complete, you know, all the modules. Yeah, next slide. So this was the TOT, and you can see the PIs there, and also Prof. Hakim, who is our advisor. And then also, this is how we set up the tables, you know, for the TOT and also for the workshops. Next slide. Okay, we had, you know, these are two slides. The one on top is from our rural site, you know, the group that went for training at Howard Hospital. And then the one below is from the School of Nursing in Harare Hospital.
Fantastic. Well done, Clara. Great work. I just wanted to make sure that folks had a chance to ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay. Yes. So I'll wait for people to add their questions. One question I had for you, Clara, was, you know, you had some peer educators involved in the training. How was their experience? And similarly, you had rehab students. I think my understanding of rehab students are physical therapists, occupational therapists, those kind of students, correct? And again, how was the training for them? You know, where was their good synergy there, or what were the challenges there?
I missed part of your question, but I take it you're asking how the different groups fared within the training?
Exactly.
Yes, yeah. Actually, everything went very smooth. You know, we didn't have any students that were not participating. What we did when we were sitting them at tables, we made sure that we like medical students, nursing students, rehab students, you know, and pharmacists, so that they were not sitting next to the person that they know. So that forced them into discussing and, you know, sharing information. We felt that, you know, everybody that was in the training, they seemed to enjoy the training.
Great. There's a question from Jess. Let me just read it for you. I'm curious how your M&E team is capturing the outcomes of the faculty and peer mentors. It's great to capture this information on this exciting development. So what's the experience there, Clara?
Okay, the M&E, what we did was we printed out the evaluation forms, and then these were completed. And what the M&E staff are doing now is to enter, you know, into online. They are now entering the responses online, the students' responses. But what we did also, we had like a qualitative evaluation, you know, where we're asking, you know, simple questions like what went well, what didn't go well, and all that. So we're actually analyzing that information so that we have an evaluation of the workshops, which is separate from the evaluation of the modules that they took.
I see. And then one final question for you, Clara. You mentioned the peer mentors. I'm curious, who is mentoring who, and how is your team supporting that? Is it mentoring of learners or peer mentorship amongst the facilitators?
Oh no, it's peer, like peer among the students. Among the students, because when we put them in different tables like that, we ask them that they should continue this relationship even outside the workshop. So like if they've got issues that they want to discuss, they discuss with each other. But then they took it even outside the group that attended the workshop. They are now talking to other students that had not attended the workshop. So they are explaining, to them what happened. And there's this feeling that, paper-based learning is the best way, that would be the best way of teaching, and they would have appreciated that, even while they were in training, because these were students that are in their final year, they are finalists. They felt that, they would have really enjoyed this type of teaching, and they would have had better understanding of the subject areas if this had been used before.
Yeah, that's great. So a couple of questions from the chat box, Clara. One from Shadrach. How will you ensure that this mentorship process is continuous? Now that you've initiated the mentorship, how will that be continued? And then from Fred, just wondering how you balance the enthusiasm to get credits for registration versus a desire to continue with HIV care in the long term. Your thoughts on this?
Okay, the first question for the mentorship, we got details of all the students that have been involved in the training, so that we can communicate with them, and they can also communicate with us, and they can also communicate with the other students. We're just going to follow that, and hopefully we'll follow that maybe quarterly to see how the students are faring. The second question I didn't understand from Fred. I didn't get it.
How do you balance the enthusiasm to get credits for registration versus a desire to continue with HIV care in the long term?
Sorry, how do we?
Well, let's do this. We'll follow up on this question offline afterwards or at the end, so that we can get some clarity there for you. How about that? But Clara, thank you so much for sharing. Very greatly appreciative of your team's efforts. I think you've done a marvelous job. So thank you. And I'm definitely echoing sentiments from others who are commenting the same in the chat box. In the interest of time, I'm going to segue on to a section led by my colleague Jessica Celentano, just giving you an update on how we've tried to streamline the evaluation process. So Jess, are you able to speak?
Yes. Hi everyone.
Perfect.
Thanks, Mike. You can proceed on to the next. So we just wanted to let you all know that we've heard your feedback. Your very helpful feedback on specifically on the pre-post test, as well as a couple other areas that needed some additional consideration. So this update is to tell you a bit about how we've altered the sign-up process. We hear that it's taking too long, that there are timeouts, so we hear that loud and clear. Also that students want scores, certificates, and the ability to access answer keys post-training, and the need to streamline a way to enter paper-based tools on the website. We've received that feedback from you all. So you can go to the next slide, Mike. We just wanted to pause for a quick second to say that we hear you. These sessions are really helpful for us to be hearing, Clara. The suggestion about having the paper-based pre and post tests by module on the website, that's a great suggestion. You'll see that reflected as soon as my colleagues can get the separate files up. Please do not hesitate from continuing to submit your feedback to us. This is how we make the program stronger and easy for you all to use in real time. So you can go on to the next. So the sign up process, For those of you that have already used the online assessment, you'll recall that the process that we previously had was that the students would sign up, so create a username and login, and they would receive an email that would activate their account. Now, we have heard from you all that that process takes too long. It eats into the beginning of your workshop and isn't a good use of time. We've revamped the system, so now upon sign up, the learner has to enter their email address twice so that we have the best chance of having an accurate email. And they will still receive an email that says that their account has been activated, but they do not need to go into their email to activate. It auto activates. So as soon as they have completed this form, they'll go right into, they'll be auto directed to the pre-test. So that should save a significant amount of time at the onset of your training. Next slide. So our colleagues are beta testing and hoping to have in the next week a scoring of the pre and the post. So essentially the learner will be able to see which knowledge-based questions they got incorrect in both the pre and the post test at the end of the workshop. So after the post test, obviously we don't want them to have access to this before they take the post test. And then they are working on a system where the learner at the end of the post test can click on this very small download certificate button that I've pasted into this slide. And it will also be emailed along with an answer key to them. This is not currently set up. This is what our programmers are working on. I've seen a beta test. They're trying to tweak it to make sure that it works seamlessly, but just wanted to give you a heads up that we hear the need for this and we are working towards a solution. You can go to the next slide, Mike. Also, for those of you that are not able to use the online tool for various reasons, we wanted to make sure that the online, the data entry is not is as easy as possible. So we've created, when you log into the website using the partner username and password that we provided, the same one that gives you access to the modules, on the evaluation menu, you can see a sub-menu for paper-based tool entry. If you navigate to that, you'll be able to select pre-test or post-test, and it's the same tool that the learner uses. The only difference, thanks to our colleagues in Stellenbosch and Zimbabwe, we have added a no response option. Obviously, when students are using paper-based tools, they have the option of not answering. And so our online tools now reflect that, and there's a no response option for those that enter the forms to be able to select if that is how the students answered. So I just wanted to close. I think that's my last. Mike, you can go. One more note. It's important to use the most recent files that are on the website, reflecting Dr. Alejandro's comments. We have added some additional questions to the Likert scales for each of the modules that evaluate comfort levels and working on interprofessional teams in the area of each of the modules. So that is reflected on our latest tools. But then a plug, to keep downloading the latest tools is really because we take the information that you all give us and we incorporate them into the tools as best we can with your support and with your guidance. So just know that these are evolving tools, and we will give you updates on how they have changed. But we do want to be responsive to your feedback as best as possible. So those changes will be reflected in the latest tools on this website. So thank you all, and please let me know if you have any questions, and please feel free to email Stripe or myself, Jess, at any point with your suggestions. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jess. One question from Shadrach. What about those folks that have already taken the training? Are they able to get certificate and learner scores?
That's great.
We can send those out.
Thank you. Yes, we will be going back. I don't think that the actually, this is a good question. I think if the learner logs back in using their username and password that they set up, that they'll be able to download a certificate. But I can ask our program team and have an update for the circular email on how we will ensure that this information, that these certificates and answer keys get to these learners. And then I see your question about having real-time info on participants. I think that this is something that, we hear you, we understand that this is important for your program, but maybe we could have that presentation at a future webinar, just because there are some issues involved with our own IRB. And what we're sharing, we are committed to, sharing information with you, but how we do that best and in line with our own IRB is of utmost importance, and while a priority, we want to make sure we're mindful of that. So let us think on that and present that to you in the future.
Yeah, that's a nice segue. Maybe, Jess, we can come back to that for the December 3rd webinar.
Perfect.
Quickly, Mike or Jesse, please, can you speak to linking this particular work to continuing professional development? Because I think that's very important also in helping drive this work forward.
Yeah, Judy, it's a great question, and we would certainly like that to be the case, and contingent on funding for Stripe into year 2. I think creating CPD credits related to this, and maybe having AfriHealth even confer those at a supranational level, is something that is high on our priority list. And so definitely something we want to circle back to in 2020. Thank you for keeping that on the radar. Yeah. Well, look, I'm conscious of the fact that we are over time and you all have busy lives. So thank you all for participating. There was one question earlier about the student video stories, whether the prize would be data or airtime. Either works. Spread the word to your learners that they can submit videos, and the possibility of those prizes in airtime or cell phone data is available to them, and I'll follow up in the Stripe circular email on that in due course. Let me end by saying thank you to our 3 fantastic presenters, Dr. Alejandro, Dr. Clara, and my colleague here, Jess Celentano. And finally, thanks to all of you for your willingness to participate in this project. And I've said this before, but the UCSF team really feel humbled and privileged to partner with you. You're all putting in long hours and tons of energy to make this project a success, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to work with you all. So on that note, I'll close here. Thank you all for participating, and we look forward to connecting again in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.